This week on Trans World Sport, we climb new heights with Britain's Hazel Finley.
We meet the masters of the slacklining world in Germany.
We join the injured servicemen and veterans at the annual Simpson Cup.
And we travel to Mongolia, where both traditional and modern sports are thriving.
Hazel Finley has spent her life in the mountains. The 30-year-old from Bristol has climbed all over the world, from the sandstone rocks of the Australian outback to the unexplored peaks of Western Mongolia. She is one of Britain's most successful rock climbers, achieving worldwide renown for her brave and daring ascents. A 6-time junior national rock climbing champion in her youth, it was at the age of 16 that Hazel gave up indoor competitive climbing in favour of the great outdoors.
My dad's a climber, so he got me into climbing from a really young age, and he was really passionate about it. If we weren't climbing, we were going on adventures and sort of like scrambling around and going on hikes and camping and things like that. So just like very outdoor lifestyle from a really young age.
It was this passion for nature that led Hazel to achieve some of her greatest ascents.
Growing up, it was always my dream to free climb El Cap. I'd seen videos of Lynn Hill free in the nose, and it's just such an obvious challenge. It's like this one of the coolest looking walls there is, but I kind of like didn't know if I'd ever be good enough. And then I sort of came to a few places in the States to train that style of climbing, and then I kind of realised it was within my capability.
Hazel's ascent of El Capitan in Yosemite Valley, California, made her the first British woman to free climb the route, a feat she has now performed 4 times.
Free climbing El Cap for the first time via Golden Gate is definitely one of like my climbing highlights, I suppose, in my life. I think because El Cap and just the rock formations are just so huge and intimidating, and I think when you come from somewhere like the UK where like our biggest cliffs are like 100 metres most of the time, you see something like El Cap and it doesn't look real. It just looks like a computer hologram or something. Yosemite is just beautiful, like it's just magical, even just the trees and the rivers and the mountains and the rock faces, like everything about it is just like a paradise.
In June 2011, Hazel also became the first female climber to conquer a route graded E9, one of the hardest rock climbing routes of its kind.
When I first tried that route, it felt like too scary, and it was just a really interesting process to kind of piece it together from being something that was a bit hard and a bit scary and maybe not manageable to being something that actually when I did it kind of felt all right. So that was kind of cool to do that.
After spending her 20s on the road, Hazel has now returned to the UK to live in North Wales. She trains at the Indie Climbing Wall in the town with the longest name in Europe, also known as Llanfair PG.
I think I just really wanted a base, and I just got a bit tired of kind of like shuffling bags around the world and not, I got injured in January and I didn't have anywhere to go. I was like, I had my stuff in my van, but it's not that fun living in a van in a climbing destination when you can't climb. And I was just thinking it would be so nice to have a house and a place to call home that I could just go and recuperate. And it's then I really realised that actually I need to do something about this and get a house. So then I started looking in North Wales.
Tom Livingston is another professional climber who belongs to the North Wales climbing community.
North Wales is a really great place to be based as a climber. There's loads of different types, from bouldering to sport climbing, trad climbing above the sea, something that's really unique to, or relatively unique to the UK. And there's loads and loads of sight people, so you can always go climbing. There's usually good weather, so you can climb as much as you like, really.
Rock climbing is a sport that requires hard physical stamina, but even harder mental strength. After a serious shoulder injury forced Hazel to stop climbing for 6 months, she began to focus her attention on the psychological conditions necessary to become a successful climber. She now runs mental coaching sessions for climbers suffering with the fear of falling.
I've always been interested in the kind of psychological challenge of climbing, and I think from a young age I realised that it was super important for performance and enjoyment climbing, and I just noticed that some person could have this kind of physical level and just not climb very well because their head was holding them back, and then someone who was weak physically in comparison could climb so much better than them because they did have a strong mind. And then at a certain age I realised that actually it's not something you're just given at birth. You know, it's not like, oh, that person's brave, that person's not. It's actually something you can train, and then that's when I started to become interested in psychology.
In her sessions, Hazel helps climbers overcome their fear of falling by forcing them to confront their anxiety in a safe and controlled environment.
You don't need to be particularly smart to realise that climbing is a scary sport, and yet people mostly focus on physical training. They'll keep training their finger strength to the point that they're ridiculously strong, and they fail to notice that actually it's their head that's holding them back. And I think there's a few reasons for that, but the main reason is that it's very easy to train, to do physical training. It's very easy for someone to tell you, like, oh, do these weights or hang off this board, but it's not very easy to do mental training. And part of the reason for that is there's not that many experts in the field. You know, a lot of people coming into this sport assume that climbing's dangerous, but it doesn't need to be at all. But even at its safest, people still find it to be psychologically uncomfortable. And I think if you meet that challenge head on and you learn ways of dealing with that discomfort, and you kind of, with experience, learn to be comfortable in the discomfort, those are like really amazing tools that you'll have for your own personal development. And I'm not sure whether there are other sports that do that quite as much as climbing.
Now it's time for our sporting question. August sees the Badminton World Championships take place in Switzerland. Amongst the stars on show will be Denmark's Victor Axelsen. The 25-year-old was the men's singles world champion 2 years ago, and he'll be out to reclaim that title in Basel. Axelsen hails from Odense, where he took up the sport at the age of 6. He progressed rapidly through the junior ranks, and today he is currently ranked 5th in the world. In 2016, he won Olympic bronze and followed that up with his sensational performance at the 2017 World Championships, where he became the 3rd Danish man to win the world title. And it's the Badminton Worlds which gives the subject for our question. We'd like you to name the player who has won the most number of singles titles at the event. We'll bring you the answer later in the show.
At the age of 11, Sweden's Patrick Kittel realised his love for horses and has gone on to ride at all the major championships in a successful dressage career. One of the all-time highlights for the world number 14 remains riding in front of his home crowd under the lights of the Scandinavium Arena in Gothenburg. The venue hosted the FEI Dressage World Cup final for the 9th time, and the Swedish favourite was amongst a total of 18 riders from 12 nations battling it out for the prestigious title.
Well, it feels pretty amazing, you know. I mean, home soil is home soil, and I've been here many times. I've done a final here last time with Scandic. It was amazing. I've won here the World Cup qualifiers over the years. The crowd in Sweden, and especially in Scandinavia, is really like so electric and on and cheering all the riders on, and that makes it so special to ride here.
Patrick reached the final after qualifying from the Western European League, and he had a successful start to the season on his new ride, Delateo. However, when the Black Stallion was sold earlier in the year, Patrick returned to riding his old friend Delaunay, or Dude.
I think he's a really rock and roll horse. He's a lot of energy. I think the coolest memory with him was when I won in London. And Dude also enjoys this, like, you know, being close to people, being close to the audience, to the spectators, to the fans. He's very kind like that. He just really wants to be with everybody.
With several finals under his belt, Patrick had increased pressure this year as a new family addition would be watching his performance.
Last year I got to be a father. It was, I mean, you know, you have sport and you have life and you have everything, but parenthood is for me something that you can't really describe. Everyone else always tells you, you know, like, oh, being a parent is great. But once you are a parent yourself, it's something like this morning when you wake up and, you know, she just gives you the biggest smile and you start the day in such a good way. It's a really cool thing. She will be watching the first time the final, so I'm going to be interesting to see what she says, if she's like, yay or nay.
Patrick would certainly have to be on top form as he faced strong competition from across the globe.
I think this year is one of the toughest finals, actually. Everyone is really worked to be here, but we have a group, I'd say 7-8 riders that are incredibly strong. Of course, Isabelle, the queen that we call her, is, for me, like, you know, she always pulls it out in the freestyle somehow. Laura Graves, mega in shape. But also like a Casey Perry from America who's done extremely well, Daniel Bachmann. Yeah, and the list just goes on and on and on.
As the defending champion, Isabelle Wert came into the competition as the favourite.
I'm motivated and Vaya as well. Hopefully not too much. She's really in shape, so we'll see what happens. Everybody's waiting for our mistakes, so I try to avoid it. That's the best.
Although rivals on the field, Isabelle has been helping Patrick in training and knew he would be fighting for a high placing.
The Swedish here in front of the home crowd, I know that Patrick is really motivated and the whole family is here, so I'm sure we will become a really close and strong fight.
As always, a strong American contingent joined the battle, amongst which was 2017 and 2018 FEI World Cup runner-up Laura Graves and her horse Verdades. Joining Laura in the US lineup were her compatriots Adrienne Lyle and Casey Perry Glass, who could not be ruled out after a team silver at the World Equestrian Games last year.
I'm excited. I always love showing in Europe, and I've never been to Sweden, and it's a beautiful place to be, and the people are very friendly, and I'm really excited to show here in Gothenburg. I'm always shooting for the top spot on the podium, but you know, I just want to be a good partner for my horse, and I know he can do it. He always gives his all, and I just need to go out there and really know that I gave my 100% effort.
Competitors in the Grand Prix would have to score at least 60% to progress to the freestyle competition. But before Patrick joined the others in the warm-up, he took us ringside to share a special memory that he would be reliving in just a few hours with Dude.
It's just, you know, it's so quiet down there, and then you come in here and the people and the audience goes like crazy with every rider, and you just realize how cool it is to be here, to just do this with your horse and just see everybody just cheering you on. It's just magical.
As baby Ems and wife Lyndall looked on, Patrick and Dude danced their Grand Prix to post a competitive score of 76.304%, enough for 6th place and a spot in the freestyle. However, it was Isabel Wörth who reigned supreme with Viagold, beating her closest rival Laura Graves by more than 1%. The battle for third came down to the wire, and it was Denmark's Daniel Bachmann Andersen who posted a personal best which pushed Casey Perry Glass into 4th and Helen Lange Hannenberg into 5th. All 18 competitors did enough to progress to the freestyle final. After a night's rest, both Patrick and Dude were raring to go the next day.
Well, it was a really, really good test. Actually, it's almost close to his personal best. I had a little silly mistake in the rain back. Otherwise, I think I would have come even a couple of places higher. But the atmosphere to go in there, and they all just stamping, is just unreal. And yesterday, I was a bit nervous because it's the first test. But like today, I'm just filled with excitement. And I just really, literally can't wait to go in there and just rock with Guns N' Roses.
When the freestyle got underway, it was Patrick's compatriot Tina Wilhelmsen Silfven who shot to the top of the leaderboard with Don Aurelio. Then Patrick and Dude were ready to showcase their skills. The Swedish dressage star is known as the greatest showman, and he proved it once again with an amazing performance which drew rapturous applause from a partisan home crowd. The pair threw down the gauntlet, but in such a tough field it wasn't enough for a podium finish, as Helen Lange Hannenberg and Damsey put in an exceptional display to take 3rd place from Daniel Bachmann Andersen. The battle for first was between the American Graves and the German Wörth. Laura and Verdades posted 87.179%, but they missed out on top spot as the rider known as the Queen dazzled again to claim her 3rd consecutive FEI Dressage World Cup title. Wörth withstood the pressure, proving unbeatable once again with a score of 88.871%.
Vaya was really brilliant. It was as close as this to have the perfect freestyle. I think she was better than ever, and I am so happy. She really deserves it.
The home favourite secured 6th position behind Casey Perry Glass and was more than happy with his performance.
What a show, huh? I think, like, you know, I mean, I had like 82.5 and you're number 6, and you just see them coming and just doing, like, you know, perfect holes, perfect everything, like really good. My personal favourite, obviously, Isabel. I think, okay, she had a small mistake, but still just outstanding in the rest. To have 13,000 standing ovations, Swedish people, and a lot of other people just standing up, you know, screaming when you go out. I mean, that's a feeling you just can't describe.
With the FEI Dressage World Cup final over for another year, we look forward to seeing many of the top riders at the European Championship in Rotterdam later this month.
The Munich Sports Festival at Königsplatz hosted the Globetrotter World Slackline Masters. "24 world-class trickliners from 8 different countries descended on Bavaria to compete in teams of 2 with the aim of being crowned world champions. Tricklining is a modern sport combining the spectacular tricks of trampolining with the balancing fun of slacklining. The athletes try to outperform each other with somersaults and crazy flight maneuvers up to 7 meters in height. Scores are awarded by a jury using video software and a complex evaluation process. In the final, Team Peru, comprising of brothers Choza and Renzon Robles, faced Team Brazil with over 10,000 fans watching on. It was the brothers from Peru who came out on top, impressing the judges with their highly demanding yet precisely executed performances.
I cannot describe it right now. It's like a lot of emotions coming up, but super happy. It's like, I don't believe it yet. I don't know, maybe him.
Yeah, it's crazy because I always wanted to come to this place because it's the first place that there was a competition. So it was a dream for me just to be here and to win. It was incredible. Like out of this planet, like crazy. Yeah.
In addition to the Trickline World Cup, a jib line contest was also held, with defending champion Jan Rusev from Estonia looking to defend his title. Jib lining is a form of trick lining with a special focus on coordination and rhythm. The final saw Rusev face Rosa Tokumatoko from Peru, the Peruvian's balancing skills impressing the judges throughout the competition. But a dynamic display from Rusev with moves such as backflip to front flip ensured he retained his crown.
Well, yeah, I arrived here. Actually, I was late for the contest a bit, but I made it in time. And I was surprised, by the way, because I didn't prepare so much for the competition. But it seems like enough skill to win.
There was also a chance for fans to get involved, as Munich competed in the Global City Balance Challenge. Anyone who managed to balance for 10 seconds was included in the city score, as Munich attempted to break the world record of 800 players. The target was in touching distance, but heavy rain hampered progress. The city ended the day with an impressive total of 730.
Slacklining is a fascinating sport because it's super diverse and it's accessible to basically anyone, because you can have fun as a child with your family in the backyard with a line which is super low and just learn and play with balance.
Really special about the Globetrotter World Slackline Masters are that here comes the people from everywhere, all over the world. It's so cool, international, and that's what we wanted to do and what we are proud about.
Last month saw the latest staging of the Simpson Cup, an annual competition featuring teams of 13 injured servicemen and veterans from Great Britain and the United States. The event, played in a Ryder Cup style format, is the brainchild of John Simpson, the founder of the On Course Foundation charity, which provides long-term benefits to injured service personnel and veterans through the medium of golf. The 7th edition at St Andrews offered something extra special.
So exciting to be in the home of golf. That's quite exceptional, and the hospitality that they've shown us here has been amazing, both from the R&A and the St Andrews Links Trust. Every one of them has got a fantastic story, but the golf is great. I think the atmosphere is going to be tremendous for them, and I love watching the camaraderie between the two teams as well.
Ian Bishop captained Great Britain this year, while the USA were led by rookie Mike Stafford. They both share a passion for the event.
I joined the foundation in probably late 2010, 2011. I basically wanted to find something that I could do where I didn't need any adaptations. I could just rock up, obviously with me prosthetic legs, and just crack on. And golf, what I found is that's pretty much the only sport that I can do that without having any adaptations. All I need is my golf clubs, and pretty much where I go.
On August 8, 2005, I was driving a Humvee down the road there in South Baghdad, and our vehicle hit a pressure plate IED, and it blew off my leg. And one of the first questions I asked after my injury was, when am I going to be able to play golf again? Hooked up with the On Course Foundation, and it has helped me with competition. It's helped me as a man to just grow and look at life in a whole different way.
It's a massive privilege. I've been asked to be captain again, especially at the home of golf at St Andrews. The whole week as a whole, it's getting that competition back and obviously playing, representing your country, and obviously playing the Americans, and we were desperate to get the cup back.
Being captain of a team anywhere, you know, when you're representing your country, is just unbelievable. To have it here at St. Andrews, the home of golf, it's just unbelievable, it's incredible. I can't even express how I feel.
The iconic setting wasn't the only topic of discussion. Kate Sermon for Team GB became the first female player to take part in the competition. It marked a milestone for women's golf.
I'm sure loads of other people could do it. It's really nice to do it, but the guys in the team have really welcomed me into it and made me feel like I sort of deserved to be here, which was something I was nervous about. So I'm just one of the team, really. The RNA and On-Course Foundation are fantastic, really, in promoting women in golf. And I think that's really important. And I just don't think there should be any barriers at all.
In addition to injured military personnel, the foundation also supports veterans like Kate who are recovering from serious illness.
I found out about the charity at a really low point, wearing a wig and full of chemotherapy and really weak. I absolutely lived for my sports, so my hockey and my rugby. So On-Course brought a new skill and a new ambition and a new aim to learn a new sport, and they've given me confidence and a belonging to something again.
Another to benefit from the charity support is double leg amputee Kevin McCluskey from Team USA.
It really makes you feel like you're doing something, you know. It's good to feel that way. It's good to get back out there, and you know, for years you hide, and you know, you become your own worst enemy. So to be friends with yourself and to allow yourself to go out and, you know, open your mind and your heart up a little bit, these things come along. There's not many organizations out there like this, and I've gone around, and like I said, I've been very distant from a lot of them because it's more about me, and I don't even want it about me. You know, I think the group that is with On-Course wants it to do with other people. And if we're all helping someone else, at the end of the day, someone's helping you too. So it's like, you know, I don't know how to say it really, but we all care.
Day one featured 6 four-ball matches in front of an eager crowd on the new course. The Team GB pairing of John Devlin and Chris Patterson made an early statement, holing 2 lengthy birdie putts. Yes. Jake Nelson and Adam Jennings got the first point on the board with a narrow win for Team USA. However, the American dream didn't last long as Team GB surged ahead, winning the next 3 matches to finish day one leading by 3.5 to 2.5. For the first time since the inaugural event in 2012, Team GB were ahead going into the singles. Those matches were played on the hallowed turf of the old course, and the scene was set for an exciting finale. Team GB seemed to pick up where they left off, producing some fine shot making. Despite the efforts of Team USA, the hosts won 5 of the first 7 matches to provide the platform for victory. They eventually recorded an impressive 4-point win, their first win in the event for 4 years. Captain Ian Bishop lifted the trophy, which they hope to retain next year in America.
Right, fill it with beer.
Arguably the fastest finisher in US domestic cycling, Justin Williams is using his success to forge a path towards greater diversity in the sport. A former member of the Trek Livestrong development team, alongside the likes of Taylor Finney, the 30-year-old LA native with Belizean roots has dominated the American criterium scene in recent years. His journey hasn't been without its struggles though, as Transworld Sport found out when it spent time with the Trailblazer at the recent Harlem Skyscraper Classic in New York.
After Livestrong, it was I had learned a couple of hard lessons, and I had been on the U.S. national team, had spent some time in Europe, and it was just like such a crazy culture shock for me coming from like South Central LA. I had realized that it wasn't something that I necessarily would thrive in, or I didn't know if I wanted to commit my life to being that European type of guy and picking up my whole life, leaving my family and going to Europe. My whole life I had been taught that the only way you make it is in Europe. So I came home and I went to college and I was like, all right, like I guess I gotta live this normal life. I guess my cycling career is over because I'm not gonna go, pro tour. And luckily I just had, some really good guidance and I had the motivation of my younger brother, Corey. I was done with the racing side of it, and he was like, I'm gonna do a year on this MRI team, like, just come ride with me. And yeah, I just didn't train with the power meter, I just would ride with them all the time. And that ended up being one of the best years I had. Between Livestrong and going through those middle years where I didn't know if I wanted to do it, I didn't know what success was for me in the sport if it wasn't Europe. Finding how I could be effective and how I could help other people without being on that level, that became more important to me. And that started with helping my younger brother and the fulfillment that came from watching him win races, watching him smile when the team got the job done. That basically just evolved into what we are now and where we're going.
Where Williams is going became a little clearer this year as he took the step of setting up his own team, Legion of Los Angeles.
Legion is a team that I put together to promote diversity in the sport, create this home where people can feel comfortable with being themselves. I felt like I had to do a lot of kind of toning down of who I am as a person to fit in. And I felt like there was such a lack of diversity when I was coming up that I didn't feel like I could be myself. So I really wanted to create this platform where, people can come in, kids could come in, and the environment was going to be a very American environment. And we're going to just do things that made sense for us. I would love to see more color in the sport. And you have the Colombians, you have a lot of the guys that are coming from other places, but I think that with black riders especially, and particularly just really American cyclists, I think there's a hard time fitting in just because the culture is so different. And hopefully in the future we see more people that are more comfortable with joining the sport. You never know what's going to happen if you make something accessible and acceptable. You never know what's going to happen with the people the talent that could potentially join the peloton. I have a lot of friends that I grew up with that were amazing talents on the bike. And once you get out of the junior ranks in America, there's kind of nowhere. There's this massive gap to pro level cycling, and we kind of want to just fill that. I don't ever want to be a pro tour team. If it happens, then that's great, but it's not in my immediate goals. I want to be a team where kids can come to and learn how to ride in the field, learn how to read a race, learn how to get a bottle from a car. It's these basic skills that I think the Euros have a system of how that works and we just don't. And we want to create that bridge to what a pro level cyclist is. Crit racing is the heart of American racing. I think it's something that's been neglected for a really long time just because of Lance Armstrong and and a lot of the guys wanting to just idolizing European racing. And I get it, it's great. I love European racing, I watch it all the time. But I think for us in our culture, it just, the 100-mile, 150-mile races, it just doesn't work here. But what we do have is like this really high-intensity circuit racing that works so well for American racing. Anyone that I've ever taken to a crit, doesn't matter if they've never seen a bike race before, they're super pumped, super excited. They love every minute of it. And I think that's something that we need to utilize a lot more, just because it takes a lot more than legs to win a criterium. You gotta be great at bike handling. You gotta understand what's happening in the race. You gotta be good at momentum control. There's so many little you gotta pick the right tire pressure. There's more dimensions to it. And that's what I really, really love and appreciate about a criterium racing. On top of that, you get these amazing crowds that are just out screaming because they've never seen, 100 cyclists rolling around corners, like bumping each other and touching each other. And I think there's something that fits the intensity that is America really well. And crit racing is the way that I think our racing needs to go. I think that's where the money is, and I think that's where the future is. If you give kids something that they can look at, a person that they can aspire to be or they admire, that's the first step in getting people into a sport. If no one looks like you when you go out to a bike race, or if you see a bike race on TV and no one looks like you, it's not something that I think you'll believe that you can do. And that's something that we also want to focus on. Us being this team that is promoting diversity is great, but us getting on the podium and standing on the top step from time to time is even better. And I think that's where it's really important for what we're doing, because if we can be this face that's winning races and showing younger kids from different demographics that this is possible, you can do it. All these things come with bike racing. I think that's like a really big step in the right direction for getting them to maybe consider bike racing as a viable option for the future.
Now for the answer to our sporting question. This month, the Badminton World Championships are being held in Switzerland. The tournament will include over 350 players taking part from around 50 countries. Earlier in the show, we asked you to name the player who has won the most singles titles at the Worlds. The answer is Lin Dan of China, who has triumphed on 5 occasions. He won his first world title in 2006 and his last came in 2013. In a glorious career, Dan has also claimed 2 Olympic gold medals, back-to-back in Beijing and London. Now 35, the Chinese star is currently ranked 14th in the world, and many believe that his best days in the sport are now behind him. However, we're not ruling out Lin Dan making a surprise charge all the way to the final at the forthcoming World Championships. Be sure to tune in.
This is Mongolia, a nation with a rich and proud history. By the middle of the 13th century, the Mongol Empire was at its height. Its borders stretched from the Korean Peninsula and the Pacific Ocean in the east to modern-day Romania in the west. At the heart of the mighty empire was the city of Karakorum. The Mongol Empire's foundations lay in the nomadic tribes who came together to create a fearsome fighting force. Genghis Khan's Mongol warriors were the finest horsemen the world had ever seen. They were able to wield a lance or shoot from a bow whilst galloping towards their enemies in all weather conditions. Nearly 800 years later, these proud traditions are still maintained by the country's 1 million nomadic people, who are linked to the land by their ancient heritage.
As a nomadic herder, I have inherited everything I have and everything I am from my parents, and they in turn from their parents. We are bound together by our ancient ways, the love of horses, the practice of traditional sports like archery and wrestling. All these things make us who we are. They create what it means to be Mongolian.
Mongolia's strength in warfare stemmed from their warriors' exceptional ability with a bow and arrow. Genghis Khan's mounted archers were known to be able to hit targets over 500 meters away whilst galloping at full speed. The modern archer shoots from a more modest 75 meters in traditional archery competitions, but respect for the old ways of dress and the ritual of scoring the archer's performance in song is still well preserved here.
Those of us born and raised here in Harehorin feel a real duty to follow closely the ancient ways of traditional archery. We are blessed to be able to practice our sport here in the shadow of the oldest monastery in our country, and it is our primary duty to pass these traditions down to the next generation.
Throughout Mongolia, every region holds its own traditional sports festival, or Nadam. Archery, horse racing and wrestling events are contested, and the customs and rituals have changed little in over 800 years, as a way for Mongol warriors to test their strength and skill away from the battlefield.
In the old days, it was only really the older generations or a few professionals who used to shoot bows. But over the last 3 or 4 years, archers have been getting younger and younger. We've gone from 200 archers competing at the National Nadam Festival to over 500. It proves just how much this sport has really grown. In traditional archery, anybody from 8 to 80 can compete together, and that's what makes this sport so great.
The traditional Mongolian bow has remained unchanged for almost 2,000 years. It's a composite construction of layers of birchwood, cow horn and animal sinews glued together by boiled animal hide and then left for a year to dry. Today it's used for competitions and hunting, but in the 13th century it was the weapon that helped to create the most feared empire the world had ever seen.
We still make our bows the way they were made during the time of the Great Mongolian Empire. There's absolutely no deviation from it. We still use the same materials and follow the same methods laid down by our ancestors. I hope that in thousands of years' time, Mongolians will still be following these ancient ways, and so we must do all we can to preserve this part of our cultural heritage.
One of Harehorin's most famous sons is the freestyle wrestler Zidik Aidov. At the 1976 Montreal Olympics, he won silver in the men's 62-kilogram freestyle wrestling event. He was also a 2-time world champion. At the 2008 Beijing Games, Naidin Tushinbaya won Mongolia's first ever Olympic gold medal in the 100-kilogram division of the men's judo event. Tushinbaya had grown up practicing Mongolian wrestling, the traditional form of folk wrestling that is the country's official national sport. Today, wrestling remains Mongolia's most popular sport. It's been in existence in Mongolian culture since the dawn of recorded history. During the Mongol Empire, warriors wrestled in order to stay fit for battle. The sport is governed by strict rules which emphasize respect for one's opponent. The elaborate costumes and rigorously observed etiquette has changed little over the centuries.
I started wrestling at 13 years of age. For us Mongolians, wrestling is a part of our heritage, and every Mongolian family wishes their son to become a wrestler. We feel part of an ancient tradition. My father, my grandfather and my great-grandfather were all great wrestlers. My ambition is to continue my family's proud tradition in the sport.
In Mongolian wrestling, there are no weight or age divisions. Tournaments are run on an elimination system, where in the space of a few hours, the numbers of surviving competitors decrease until there is one supreme champion left. Aside from the big national competitions where professional wrestlers compete, every region holds its own tournaments. Here in Harohoran, keen amateur wrestlers hope that victory could one day lead to the chance to compete at the top events in the nation's capital, Ulaanbaatar.
The reason why we are so obsessive about this sport is that it lies in our DNA. It's fundamental to who we are and what makes us Mongolian. So, of course, I'm proud of its traditions, its history, and how it connects us with our past.
Sport in general has been enjoying a much higher profile in Mongolia in recent years. Harohoran has just opened its new indoor sports complex, built at a cost of nearly $2 million. Government policy has increasingly seen sport as a key way to bring isolated communities together and to promote health and well-being. With an average life expectancy of 67 years, Mongolia is behind neighbours Russia and China. It's hoped that new facilities like these will encourage participation in many activities throughout the year. For the city's sports administrator, the future is looking bright.
This complex has been a source of pride, not just for me, but for the whole city and region. It's great for the local kids, and it will make such a difference to the whole community. This centre is twice the size of anything else outside of the capital, so it's a serious investment in our region's future. For Harohoran too, it really puts us on the sporting map.
In Harohoran and across the nation as a whole, more modern sports like basketball and football are capturing the imagination of Mongolia's younger generation. With NBA games and English Premier League football matches shown live on Mongolian TV, young players now have new role models to emulate and to inspire them to sporting success. Yet, despite the competition for attention from the superstars of Europe and North America, there are still many youngsters keen to pursue the ancient ways of Mongolian wrestling. For these young wrestlers, it's a long way to the glory of a national Nadam competition, but their motivation and commitment seem as strong as ever.
Wrestling is so fundamental to what it means to be Mongolian. Mongolia has 21 provinces, and each has its own wrestling ring. So there is a real commitment to see this traditional sport survive. Mongolian wrestling is gradually becoming more professional, like sumo. Thankfully, we still see large numbers of kids wanting to learn and participate in this sport. So I am optimistic that traditional sports will not just survive, but thrive too.
In Mongolia, traditional sports like archery, wrestling and horse riding are more than just bygone relics. They provide an unbreakable link between the country's past, present and future.